Hello everybody, Mark Frederic, Le Charcuterie Anglais. Nice to see you today. Well, it's getting nearer and nearer to Christmas, isn't it? We're still in November right now, so I want to get this message across early on because you'll be thinking about placing your turkey order if you haven't already done so, excuse me. And I hope you're ordering your turkeys from a local butcher or local farmer. Please try and avoid buying your turkeys from the supermarket unless you really have to. But when there's a word of caution. If you're buying your turkeys from a supermarket, invariably they're going to be shrink wrapped in plastic, which is not always healthy. And not only that, there could be bits missing and you can't really see exactly what the turkey holds. And what I mean by that is, if you buy from your local butcher or local farmer, you can be assured that it's going to have a large flap of skin at its neck end, okay, and which is vitally important to stuffed turkeys. Hence this message. Make sure when you're stuffing your turkey, if you're making up your own stuffing, that's superb. You might be buying some stuffing where you're adding water, mixing it up and applying it. But whatever your stuffing is, it must be applied at the front end, and that way it can cook evenly along with the meat of the bird. And if you pack that area in at the front with your stuffing, you can then pull the remainder of the flap of the skin. And you can only really get these with local birds, because the supermarket birds tend to be cut short. The skin is cut short here because in these factories where they process them, they don't care. They don't give a bloody toss, and they just cut straight across, and you haven't got the bloody flap. And in fact, very often when you buy a turkey, you can start to see the breast meat because the skin is kind of shrinking back. So that really gets up my goat. That does. And but your farmers, local farmers, and your butchers, between them, they make sure that you get a nice bird with a good flap of skin where you can traditionally stuff your bird, always up at the front so as it can cook evenly. Do not stuff or do not use stuffing at the back end. That's no good to you. Think of the bird. It's a bloody big bird as a turkey. By the time it's cooked all the way through the breast, and you don't want to cook all the way through, by the time the heat goes through the breast to get to the stuffing inside the cavity, the heat is spent too much time in that breast meat and elsewhere before it starts cooking your stuffing inside. So by the time the stuffing is fully cooked, your bird's already drying out. It's past its best. You're killing it. So don't stuff the cavity. Please don't stuff the cavity. Not with stuffing anyway. I'll tell you in a second what you can use. But don't put your stuffing in the cavity. Put it up at the front where it's traditionally supposed to be. Make sure the wings have got all the parts. None of this, cutting the tips of the wings off, because that's lazy processing. So you don't want your farmers nor your butchers to be doing that, and they're not doing you any favours by taking them off. All right. So just take the birds complete. If it's got the odd feather on, then so be it. Live with it or pull them out yourself, because that's where that's where the feathers are the most difficult to take out. So, and that's usually why they're cutting the tips off, or more. With the birds, you don't want that kind of producer. So anyway, so that's for the one day in the year where you want the best bird possible. Proud and big breasts and a good amount of stuffing. That's the type of bird you want, and you want it where it's been eviscerated. So when they do eviscerate it, you don't need to know this if you're the customer, but the farmer, the producer, the butcher, they need to know that the cut from in between the shoulders down the neck towards the back of the head, that's where it needs to start and finish. So then you open the skin from the neck and you can cut it off at the head end, and then you just pull the neck back. You come back to the neck where the neck joins the body in between the shoulder blades, and either side, like a V cut, with your knife, just cut into the base of the neck and then pull out the remainder. That affords you then this huge flap of skin, as long as you've cut it off towards, near to the head, and then you do your stuffing and pull it back, right? So that'll be, bob on if you do it that way. And it's real easy. Once you get into a routine, it's easy to do this. But a lot of people who are not familiar with producing turkeys, they'll, with a cleaver or something, they just chop the bloody neck off and they're cutting it square right close up here, and they've taken all the skin away, so you've got nowhere to put your stuffing. You don't want that kind of producer. Make sure you talk to your butcher about this when you place your order, and tell them how important it is that you want to be able to stuff it at the front end. So a big flap of skin. Now, when the wings are all complete and they're folded behind the bird, those wings over at the top of that flap of skin, once the bird is stuffed, holds it all in place. So there's no need for any cocktail sticks, any alien objects like cotton string for tying it closed and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, you got the bird the right way up, and you got this cavity to deal with. Now, if you cook the bird and leave the cavity empty, it's going to be very dry in there, and that dry heat will just rise and cook the breast meat through the rib cage and everything, and dry it out from the inside. You want to try and avoid that if you can. Sorry, go ahead. So you need to think about what can you do. So easiest thing in the world, if you want to keep things moist and you want no flavour, potatoes, cut them in half, just put them in there, okay? And the moisture from the potatoes will rise, help to keep the breast meat from the inside moist, and then by the time the heat has cooked the breast meat, job's a good one. If you want something with a bit of a subtle flavour, all right, onions, all right, exactly the same. Cut them in half, stick them in there, and then you've got yourself a bit of a turkey then with a bit of a subtle flavour that's gone up in there. Okay, and then you can move on to apples. But got a few here actually. The green ones are from my allotment. Red ones are from a local store. So again, cut them in half, get them in there, and then the moisture from the apples, will work for you. And then you can always use any of these products afterwards for something else. All right. I wanted to show you lemons. You know what the lemons look like. Those are ideal. Cut them in half, stick them in the bird. But I've got these clementines or tangerines, and they work as well. So any citrus in there works really well, especially lemons. And the lemon infuses the turkey breast from the inside. So eventually when you come to eat your turkey and it's sliced off the breast, you get this lovely taste of the meat, what it should taste like. And then you got this hint of citrus on the outside, and it's just like a little sparkle of, ooh, what's that? So and that's what it is. It's the using the citrus in the cavity of the bird, and it's rising up, and it's doing a couple of jobs, helping to keep your bird moist, and infuses citrus notes onto your meat. Not too much, but just enough for you to like, oh, that was pleasant, and it works really well with chicken as well. So if you're a regular chicken user, there's a good tip for you. So look, just remember, if the stuffing was on the inside in the cavity and not at the front, by the time the cooking, the heat has travelled all the way through the bird, it's got to continue cooking and drying out the breast meat, because it's got to get through to that stuffing. So by the time your stuffing is cooked, your breast meat is spoiled, but or far from best. So that's why it's important to have your stuffing up at the front. Okay, so that's what you need to do. Please take these tips on board. Please buy your turkeys from local butchers. Explain you need to stuff your bird at the front, so you need plenty of skin still attached. Okay, And the local butchers support local farmers, so it's a good little cycle of you know, buying local goes on. If you get the supermarket ones, they're very often vacuum packed or shrink wrapped, and the birds all trussed up and tight, and you can't tell if they've had parts cut off, or you can't even tell how much neck flap you've still got to do the stuffing, because these are done in factories, and very often you know, they're not butchers, they're meat cutters, and they just cut the thing off at the square at the you know, base of the neck, you know, where it meets the body there, and they leave no skin flap for you to stuff your bird. So you know, it's like a real irritation for me. So but to avoid that, just go to your local butchers. Honestly, they'll look after you. If there's one day in the year that you want your bird to be right, all right, it's bloody Christmas. So you know, get down to the butchers, talk to them, tell them how you need it. You know, it's not difficult, and I'm sure they do it like that anyway. But you know, if you want to be double sure, then just ask the question. Enjoy your Christmas, and pop back and buy me a coffee sometime. Got a little thing going on down there in the description, so it'll help support these videos. All the best, toodaloo, and Happy New Year too.